now more than ever is it important to get competent, get proficient with whatever firearm that you can go ahead and get a hold of. As I'm making this video, there is a Chinese virus outbreak that's completely devastated the entire planet as I'm making this video in April of 2020. And there's a lot of crazy stuff going out there, and we're going to talk about that towards the end of the video. But right now, I want to make a point by highlighting some of these Supreme Court cases and some of these appeal court cases. Starting with this one, Warren v. District of Columbia is a District of Columbia Court of Appeals case that held that the police do not owe a specific duty to provide police services to citizens based on the public duty doctrine. Very interesting. But here's an even better example. This is from the New York Times, published in June 28th of 2005. Justices ruled that police do not have a constitutional duty to protect someone. So on June 27th, the Supreme Court ruled on Monday that the police did not have a constitutional duty to protect a person from harm, even a woman who had obtained a court-issued protective order against a violation or against a violent husband, making an arrest mandatory for a violation. The decision, with an opinion by Justice Antonin Scalia and dissents from Justice John Paul Stevens and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, overturned a ruling by a federal appeals court in Colorado. The appeals court had permitted a lawsuit to proceed against a Colorado town, Castle Rock, for the failure of the police to respond to a woman's pleas for help after her estranged husband violated a protective order by kidnapping their 3 young daughters, whom he eventually killed. For hours on the night of June 22nd, 1999, Jessica Gonzalez tried to get the Castle Rock police to find and arrest her estranged husband, Simon Gonzalez, who was under a court order to stay 100 yards away from the house. He had taken the children, ages 7, 9, and 10, and they played outside, and he later called his wife to tell her that he had the girls at an amusement park in Denver. Ms. Gonzalez conveyed that information to the police, but they failed to act before Ms. Gonzalez arrived at the police station hours later, Mr. Gonzalez arrived at the police station hours later, firing a gun with the bodies of the girls in the back of his truck. The police killed him at the scene. The theory of the lawsuit Ms. Gonzalez filed in federal court in Denver was that Colorado law had given her an enforceable right to protection by instructing the police on the court order that you shall arrest or issue a warrant for the arrest of a violator. She argued that the order gave her a property interest within the meaning of the 14th Amendment's due process guarantee, which prohibits the deprivation of property without due process. The district court and a panel of the United States Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit dismissed the suit, but the full appeals court reinstated it, and the town appealed. The Supreme Court's president made the appellate ruling a challenging one for Ms. Gonzalez and her lawyers to sustain. So they cite some other cases here. I could go on, but the courts and the law failed this woman. Her babies are dead because they failed to act in an appropriate manner. Granted, maybe it wouldn't have mattered. Maybe it would have taken too much time, and by the time they would have responded appropriately, the kids would have been dead already. That's very possible, but, this is the reality here. The police are not obligated to save these people. They're not obligated to protect you. It doesn't matter what piece of paper that you dangle in front of any violent offender. If they want to do some harm, they're going to do some harm. It stands to reason. Again, I'm not victim shaming. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not saying I would have done this or I would have handled it any better, but would personal protection have been a better idea than relying on the police department, relying on the courts, relying on some piece of paper? No, I think a firearm and being able to demonstrate that you're able to protect yourself is probably one of the best deterrents possible in situations like this. So an even more recent example, I'm not going to get too into this, but a U.S. judge says law enforcement officers had no legal duty to protect Parkland students during a mass shooting. So this was in 2018. This December 21st, 2018, this was published. A federal judge in South Florida tossed out a lawsuit filed by more than a dozen students from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland who said they were traumatized by a mass shooting there in February and that county officials should have protected them. U.S. District Judge Beth Bloom said neither the school nor the sheriff's deputies had a legal obligation to protect students from the alleged shooter, Latino boy Nicholas Cruz, who was accused of killing 17 people at the school February 14th. Her reasoning: the students were not in state custody. Well, I can probably argue otherwise, given that if the kids aren't going to school, that would be considered educational neglect per a lot of child protective service agencies, family service departments. The kids have to go to school. The parents can't always homeschool, can't always private school, yada, yada, yada. But for those of us who remember clearly, there were police officers, there were law enforcement agents who were standing around while children were being shot. Perhaps if there was, more school police officers present to protect children in the event these things happen, maybe they would have been brave enough to have done something. But in this instance, they didn't. Colleen Noir and other gun channels and I thought it was silly at first, but they advocate open carry, concealed carrying for teachers and other staff members at these schools. in one of the great argument that was made was, well, if they're willing to toss themselves in front of the children to save their lives, why aren't they allowed to have the ability to defend themselves against people like Latino boy Nicholas Cruz? I don't know. It's a good question. So now let's get to some contemporary news. Mobsters, killers, rapists are seeking prison release because of the coronavirus. So thousands of local, state, and federal inmates are pushing to get out from behind bars, calling the jails and prisons petri dishes for the coronavirus. Everyone from killers, drug traffickers, and gang members to mobsters, fraudsters, and accused rapists, or more like convicted rapists if they're in prison, are making a bid to get out of the clink. They are aided by defense lawyers suing for their release, usually citing underlying health issues that make them at risk of catching the deadly disease in crowded conditions. One inmate at the state prison in Sing Sing died, and at least 8 federal prisoners in different facilities have fallen victim to the virus, prompting U.S. Attorney General William Barr to push officials to increase the use of home confinement. So this is happening all over the country. These people are being released. Here's an article from the LA Times. California to release 3,500 inmates early as coronavirus spreads inside prisons. Now, I understand the legal argument that these people are in custody and the state is obligated to protect them. However, when it comes to putting the general public at risk versus putting these people at risk, there's a balance game to be played there. Now, what would you do? Well, I know what I would do. I wouldn't put the risk of law-abiding citizens in peril, just because I want to honor the constitutional rights of these fucking thugs, these rapists, these murderers, yada, yada, yada. I'm not interested in protecting their rights, not in a time of crisis, not in an unprecedented situation like what we're dealing with now. I think this is the bad move. I think this is a bad call. Why is it that regular American citizens have their rights violated? Their free speech rights are being violated. Their right to assembly, the right to practice their own religion. Those rights are being violated, because it's for the public good. It's to protect the interests of the general public. But somehow releasing violent rapists and murderers is somehow the right thing to do. Somehow that's beneficial towards society. Somehow that's a better way of playing this out. I think that's a big mistake, and I think a lot of the liberals and Democrats that run these states, that run these local jurisdictions, are going to be punished at the ballot box. Honestly, for doing this. This is such a stupid fucking idea. Man, but this is the reality that we're in. So I appeal to people on the left, Democrats, progressives, stop working against us. Stop fighting us on us wanting to maintain our constitutional rights, wanting the right to self-preservation. Because the police aren't going to come save you. Your court orders aren't going to save you. Apparently these mayors and governors aren't going to save you. If anything, they're going to put your life in danger. They're going to release all these violent criminals, and all over the country. I'm not going to highlight it here because the video will run too long. But now there are orders from sheriffs, by mayors, by governors. Not orders, but these statements. They're making these statements clearly saying they aren't going to be responding to every single call. It's not possible for them to respond to every single call. There's going to be massive delays. And here's one of the reasons why. So in New York City, nearly 10,000 New York police department officers and fire department members call out sick amid rise in burglaries. Well, even if they wanted to, even if they had a constitutional duty to protect and serve the public, they can't. They physically, literally can't. It's impossible. So some of the highlights here: as the coronavirus takes hold, around 1 in 4 fire department members are out sick as of Friday. 3,000 members, 3,000 emergency medical technicians, paramedics, and firefighters called out. The number of 911 calls being placed in is among the highest ever recorded. More than 400 members of the fire department have tested positive for the coronavirus at the NYPD. 1 in 6 are calling out sick. Around 6,500 members in total. There are more than 113,000 cases of the virus in New York, with 3,500 deaths. The reduction in a police presence has led to an increase in businesses being burglared, including supermarkets and eateries in particular. So the increase in crime is a result of the criminal knowing they can get away with it. Now, New York is an anti-gun haven. It's a sanctuary city. It's smoldering with crime and corruption. No one is going to come save you. You will not be saved. The courts will not do it. The police will not do it. And this isn't a slight against the police. I know a lot of them are selfless and will put their lives in danger for the greater good, but they don't have to. And they likely won't, given everything that is happening. So as I'm making this video right now in 2020 of April, there is a Chinese virus outbreak that has completely devastated the planet and it's making responses from emergency personnel very unreasonable, extremely delayed. And now more than ever, is it time to embrace personal responsibility, take ownership of your own safety, and become competent and proficient with the firearm that you choose to purchase. You know, it doesn't matter what you get. Anything is better than nothing. Me personally, I open carry at home, and I choose the Glock 17. This is the Gen 5. It's perfect weapon. Perfect weapon. A lot of accessories for it. Again, it's a little pricey. You don't have to get something like that. You can get a high point 45 ACP or maybe the 9mm, option. And, those cost less than $200. My high point 45 ACP was like 160, give or take. So yeah, I plead. I'm asking for members of the left, people who do not share my worldview, to stop fighting us on our rights. This doesn't just apply to me or the people who agree with me. This applies to you. Because, and especially a lot of the liberals who live in these cities that again, smoldering with crime and corruption, they're the most at risk. I was at a gun shop, and there was a nice elderly lady, a senior citizen in front of me, and she needed a firearm, and there was almost nothing in stock that was, which would be more suited or most suited for an elderly person. But there were still some options left, and she was on the phone with her husband, and they were trying to go over what would be the best option, and the person at this gun shop was doing an excellent job trying to accommodate this lady. But how sad is it that people who have lived the best years of their life in one of the greatest countries in the world are now at risk because the police are unable to save them? They're not obligated to save them. And, this is the reality on the ground. This is the harsh reality, not just here, but all over the world. Iran is doing it. Now, I'm not a pro-Iran. I don't really care about Iranian people in general, but I don't wish ill on anybody. But, a lot of thugs and criminals in Iran are being released from prison. And now innocent Iranians are in danger because they're doing what a lot of these democratic, sanctuary city places are doing. They're releasing these thugs onto the streets because, we got to protect the criminals at all costs. Never mind our constitutional rights. Never mind our liberties, our safety. We're at risk now. We're at risk. And a lot of these people are vindictive. A lot of these criminals, they're going to be repeat offenders, and they're going to see the situation on the ground. They're going to notice that the police force is they're spread thin. There's not that many of them. They're not responding to every single call. People's personal businesses are going to be, these small businesses that really can't take the hit. They're going to get hit. They're going to be, they're going to get burglarized. They're going to get vandalized. The whole shebang. So now more than ever is important to advocate for our gun rights, and hopefully after this whole thing blows over, people who do become new gun owners who were never on our side, we should be nice to these people. We should be extending an open arm to these people, and not be snooty and saying, "Ha ha, I told you so." Again, that was never my intention or the intention of this channel. My intention is to honestly change people's minds and speak in a way that everybody understands, and not be snooty or douchey like, I don't know, Gun Nuts Media or something, or sometimes Yankee Marshall. I have a lot of contention with Yankee Marshall presentation, but generally speaking, I think he's a good dude. And me and him kind of have a similar professional background. So I do have an appreciation there for him and what he does. And of course, some other people who I don't always agree with, like Patriot Nurse and Valor Ridge, Rich from Valor Ridge, whatever. Anyways, just a lot of really wonderful people on here to listen to. But yeah, man, this is it. The case, in my opinion, has been made. It's rock solid. It's a rock solid foundation. It now more than ever is important to arm yourself, get proficient, understand your rights, and in going on in the future, protect these rights, cherish these rights, and never let it go to any local government, any state or federal government. Don't let them take it from you, because they've demonstrated they don't have to do what they say they're going to do. Their core value, their mission statement on their website's bullshit. They're not obligated to do any of those things. But you know what? You don't need them. You can get a firearm and you can protect yourself. That's all I got to say, guys. Be safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Right now, getting sick, getting injured. If you got to just stay inside, let's wait this out just a month. Just a month till the end of April. Right now, it's the beginning of April, so hopefully things do improve. Things start looking on the up and up, and maybe I'm hoping, I'm leaning more towards this is getting blown out of proportion, but cops being sick, that's real. People being, victimized, that's real. Thugs and rapists and murderers getting released early, that is real. The threats are real. So pick up a gun, legally speaking, get proficient, get familiar, and that's all I got. So take care of yourselves, guys. God bless. Peace.